Welcome along to Steve Wraith's True Crime podcast, and this interview is with a good friend of mine, Eric Sampson. How are you, Eric?
I'm good, Steve. Good.
Yeah, good to have you on, mate. Thanks for coming on. And the reason we got you on is to discuss Medomsley Detention Centre. Medomsley Detention Centre was a prison for young male offenders near Concert in Durham. Opened up in 1961. It was open until the late 1980s. And unfortunately for a lot of those inmates, this detention centre has been in the news for the wrong reasons. And that is because of over 1,800 living former inmates have reported sexual and physical abuse by staff. And police believe many of the staff belong to a child sex abuse ring. But first, before we get into that, Eric, just tell me a little bit about yourself. Where were you born? Where were you brought up?
I was born in a little town called Crook in County Durham, Steve.
And was it a happy childhood, Eric?
Yes, aye, happy childhood, aye.
Yeah. I mean, did you go to school? I know a lot of people in the northeast, Eric, tend to, they tend to bunk off school and get up to mischief. Were you a scholar?
I was bullied at school every day for 3 years, Steve.
Right.
So I stopped off school for 8 months. It got that bad, the bullying, I stopped off school.
What kind of things were the other kids doing to you, like, Eric?
Well, I was only little, see. They would take me dinner money off us, taking sweets off us, knocking us about. My face didn't fit with being little, see, Steve.
Yeah.
So it went on for a long time. I stopped off school for 8 months.
And were you getting taught at school? Were you getting taught schoolwork at home, Eric?
No, I just kept bunking off days even then. It mounted up to 8 months.
So how did you resolve that?
Well, what it was, my dad was a wagon driver, so he was away a lot. And I refused to go to school. So they served a care order on us for 6 months. I got put into care at Bishop Auckland for 6 months, Steve.
Right. And what was that experience like?
Age 15.
What was that experience like?
It was all right. It was all right. I used to come home on a weekend and that. And I went to school at Brandon for 6 months. And I left school when I was 15 and 3/4 of a year.
So what did you do when you left school?
Well, at the time, I was going to go in the army, right? But I was also going to become a jockey as well, because I was only little, see. And the army one, it went haywire because I got blamed for firing an air rifle and it wasn't me.
And what were the consequences of that?
Well, what it was, I knocked about with his dad for a while, and he had an air pistol, I had an air pistol, and it was him what fired the air pistol at somebody, and he blamed me because he was already past his medical to go in the army, and that would have stopped him from getting in the army, see. And the police come, and I got blamed for firing the air gun. It wasn't me, Steve. It was him what did it.
So you kept your mouth shut for a friend. What was the punishment for that crime?
I was sentenced to 3 months in Medomsley Detention Centre at Bishop Auckland Magistrates Court.
How did you feel? Were you nervous about that? Were you what were the emotions going through you when you were sentenced?
I had no idea what it was. I just thought it was like a blooming an approach show, see, until I got there. Well, but when I was taken there by 2 policemen from Bishop Auckland Magistrates Court in a Austin Allegro car, he had Austin Allegros then. Well, on the way over there, maybe takes about 40 minutes from Bishop Auckland to get a concert. they were winding us up on the way, saying, "Oh, you're going to get the hell kicked out of you, where you're going to be put through hell and everything," because the police knew what it was like.
So tell us about arriving at Medomsley. What was the place like?
Well, it was dark when I got there because it was December. It was the 12th of December, 1977. I was only just gone 17. It was dark, so the police car just pulled up at the main gate, and an officer opened the main gate and just handed us over. And maybe it took 5 minutes to get into reception. And once you were in reception, well, you don't know what to expect. But once you got in there, that's when the violence started straight away, Steve. The violence started straight away, and the mickey taking started straight away.
So take us through that, Eric. What happened to you?
I was taken into reception. There was two officers sat at the front on a wooden desk. One had glasses on, he was Scottish. And the other one was a small, stocky bloke with ginger hair. Now, I found out the real names since, but I didn't know the names at all when I was stood there. And this one, you put your feet on the red tape, and one of my feet was an inch over, so the Scottish officer got up, and he whacked it straight across the face while I was just laid out. I was laid out straight away, Steve.
Did he punch you or did he slap you?
He slapped us right across the face. I was out maybe 3-4 minutes maybe. And then I got up and he told us to strip off. So I stripped off from my underpants. They just stood in front of you, just laughing and taking the mick out of you. Checking your body for tattoos. Well, I never had a tattoo on my body then. And there was a bath to the left. And I saw all this steam coming out. There was about 6 inches of water in it, and it was red hot. They told us to get in the bath. I said, I can't go in there. It'll scald you. And I put one foot in, I jumped straight back out. And then an officer came in, he just got our robes and shoved us straight in the bath. The water was red hot, Steve. And then got out the bath, got dried off. Then they give you your kit. I was given a blue striped shirt, pair of jeans, black shoes, and a pillowcase all rolled up with a blanket in, and other bits and pieces of stuff, all your kit.
Yeah.
And I was taken to the recreation room. We were in about 7:30, then 7:15. And then all the other lads were in the recreation room, and then you were allocated to a dorm.
How many people were in a dorm?
I was in a dorm with 4 in.
Did you get any burns from that bath incident?
I didn't actually get scalded, but it was very pleasant. My skin was red, Steve.
Yeah.
It was. You couldn't stand in it. It was painful, like.
So you're in the dorm. Did you know anybody in there?
No, what it was, there was 4 beds in the dorm, but there was only 3 lads in. There was me, a lad from Middlesbrough, and there was a dark lad from Leeds. He got out before Christmas, that lad.
And were they older than you or younger than you?
I would say they're roughly about the same age, Steve. Maybe a year older, maybe. There was a lad in from Middlesbrough, and the dark-skinned lad was from Leeds.
Yeah.
And then when he went out, there was another 2 lads came in from Newcastle. I can't remember the names because it was a long time ago, like. I can remember the lad's name from Middlesbrough, mind.
Yeah.
I keep in touch with him odd times.
And what was the atmosphere like between you lads?
It was okay. It was all right, you know. My dorm was like down some stairs, but there was a dorm on the right with about 6 in. There was a dorm on the left with maybe 12 lads in.
So you're in there, you got your bed, you've got your pillow, you've got your kit on, you've been through your first bit of violence. What happened next on that first night in Medomsley?
Went to bed. You're in bed for what I would say 9 o'clock at the latest. and then you got shouted up at 6 in the morning. An officer would come and shout everybody up, and you got out of bed, you got your jeans and shoes on, and you had nothing on your top half, and you just carried a towel with you, and you sove, and you marched right the way around the corridors, and everybody got counted. And then you went to the recess to get washed. Then you would go back to your dorm, get your clothes on, and then you would go for breakfast in the dining room.
What was for breakfast?
During the week, you'd probably get a plastic cup of tea and porridge, and maybe a slice of toast with cheese on. That would be a breakfast.
And were you lining up for that? Did you have to queue up for it?
You did. You had to queue up. There was 2 queues, a queue on the left and a queue on the right. There'd been about 120 lads in there, I think, Steve.
So very noisy.
It was noisy. I think there'd have been about maybe 30 officers, 30 to 32 officers, maybe.
So you had your food. What was next?
What was next? You'd go back to your dorm, and for the first 2 weeks, you were scrubbing the floors for that fortnight. It might have been 8 days or something, I can't remember. You were scrubbing floors and polishing brass taps and all that, and polishing boots and that. You'd have a pair of overalls on, a pair of boots, and gaiters around the top of your legs, and a blue check shirt and a denim jacket. And then you'd scrub floors every day, and 12 o'clock you would go back to your dorm and you would go for dinner.
And dinner, again, queuing up in that room, 120 people there, 30 odd guards.
Yeah, queuing up, Dave, aye. Queuing up, yeah.
What kind of food were you having at your dinner?
It varied, like, say, you could get, like, stew and potato, bread bun, and maybe apple pie and custard, stuff like that. And then the day after you might get chicken curry and rice pudding, and varied stuff like that, you know. Then you'd go back. You'd eat that at about 12:30ish till 1 o'clock, and you would go back to your scrubbing the floors. And after about a week and a half, you got allocated a job.
What job did you get allocated, Eric?
I was allocated to go into the workshops cleaning plugs. It was like boxes of plugs. You had to scrape all the white stuff off the plugs with a file.
And then once your day's done, were you back into that dining room again for your evening meal?
Yes, you'd be back in the dorm about maybe 4 o'clock. You would get like showered and everything, and you would go down the dining hall about maybe 5 o'clock. And then after that, you get association for maybe an hour and a half.
So tell us about association. Where did that take place, and what kind of things were you allowed to do?
It was like there was a room, like a biggish room. There was like a table tennis table, and maybe 3 dartboards. And I think there was a pool table there as well. But the bottom of the association, there was another little room. That's where the TV was. You could go in there and watch TV. And there was maybe
how many
5 officers in that room walking about.
Right. I mean, going in to watch TV. I mean, how did that work? I've often wondered. I mean, you've got all those kids in there. How did you decide what you were going to watch on TV, Eric?
Well, I didn't go in the TV room, which I went in a couple of times. And the TV wasn't on every night. Maybe 2 or 3 nights a week. Or you could play darts, you put your name down to play darts or table tennis. And I think there was a pool table in there and all, Steve, I think.
And what time would you be locked up?
You would...
into the dorms.
After association, you'd go back to the dining room for a cup of tea and maybe stick your bun or something. You'd have a bun. And then you'd be back in the dorm for 9 o'clock.
Were you locked in your rooms, Eric?
No, you weren't locked in the room. You could walk down the stairs to go to the toilet.
Yeah.
there was a night watchman on as well. 2 night watchmen.
And were any of the inmates, given like a prefect's job?
Not that I know of.
Mm-hmm.
When you went in there, you got a blue tie, and after about 4 weeks, you got allocated to go for a green tie. But you had to get reports of other officers to get recommended for a green tie. It was called like a grade,
Yeah. Were you allowed visitors in there, Eric?
Yeah, you were. Yes, aye.
And how often were they?
You were allowed to visit every fortnight.
And obviously you were sentenced to 3 months, did you say, for your first for your first sentence in there? So
Yes,
I mean, did you have any? Did you have any
if you got
visitors?
3 months, you did 9 weeks.
Did you have any visitors, Eric?
Yeah, my mum and dad came twice, but I told them not to come anymore because the second time they came, I had a big lump on my head where one of the officers had hit us with his knuckles.
Well, let's discuss the abuse side of things, because over the course of the last 10 years, there's been a lot of stories come out. There's been inquiries, and some rather disturbing inquiries come out about Medomsley. So, you've already described how you were abused on your very first day at Medomsley. Were there any other cases of abuse that you suffered at the hands of warders, guards,
Yes, there was, Steve. There was another 4 or 5 bad incidents. I was abused by the governor as well, Steve.
Well, if you're all right discussing this, Eric, because I don't want to push you, because I know that...
No, I've got no shame, because the thing is, Steve, this needs to be out in the open what actually went on in there.
Yeah, and you shouldn't have, and Eric, you shouldn't have shame about discussing this, but
that's right.
I do feel that I need to have your own mental health, and the way you are as a person. I need to consider that before we progress on this. So anyone listening to this podcast needs to be aware that what you may hear is going to be upsetting. It's something that you may not like.
That's right.
And you have the option now to switch off. But from my perspective, it's my utmost importance to control and make sure my guests are okay mentally with this. So, Eric, as long as you're happy, you've explained the first situation where you were...
I'm more than happy, Steve, to explain. Because
all right.
The thing is, I've made a 8-page statement about everything what happened in there. Mm-hmm. Now, I was sexually abused, right?
Okay, so take us through the first account. You've been knocked out in reception. You're now into your routine. You're now in a dorm. We know the situation. So tell me when the first abuse happened, Eric.
The first abuse happened, Steve, was I'd only been in that workshop cleaning plugs for maybe, I would say, a week at the most. And it was a Thursday night. It was winter time and all. It was snowing. We finished work at 4 o'clock. Went back to the dormitory. I just got in the dormitory. And after about 10 minutes, there was an officer came to my dormitory. And he said to me, the governor wants to see you. You've got to go down to the governor's office. I'll tell you exactly what I was wearing. I was wearing a pair of black shoes, denim jeans, check shirt and a denim jacket. So I walked down the stairs, down to the corridor. The governor's door was on the left as you were going down, Steve. And his name was on the top of the door. Governor J.M. Reid. I found out his name was James Miller Reid. So I went down, knocked on the door. I heard this voice shout, "Come in." So I opened the door, went in. He said, "Shut the door behind you." So I shut the door. He got up and he locked the door with a key, which I thought, what's going on here, like? So he said to me, "Someone's pinched a file out of the workshop." I said, "I don't know what you're talking about. I've pinched no file out of the workshop." What it was, I think that was an excuse to get me in there, Steve. That's what I think it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, he told us to take my clothes off. I says, what for? He said, I want to search you. I says, why? I had to take my clothes off. So I took my jacket off, shirt off, took my shoes off, and everything else. Just stood there in my socks and underpants. Now, it was winter time. The governor wore a sheepskin coat, Steve, right?
Yeah.
Black trousers on, and he had a pair of brogues. Now, them brogues had a steel tip in the heel because you could hear him when he was walking down the corridors. But I couldn't tell you what colour they were, whether they were black, red, brown, or what. And he undid his trousers. He dropped his trousers down to his knees and his underpants. And he told me to come round the side of the desk and masturbate him. Well, by that time, I was in a state of shock. I was in tears. And I refused to do what he was telling us to do. So anyway, he got hold of us. And he bent me over the table in the room. And he pulled my underpants down, Steve. And at the side of the wall, there was a broom shank. And he tortured us with a broom shank, Steve.
Unbelievable.
Now, by that time, I was in a state of shock. Now, the whole scenario may have lasted, I would say, 20 to 25 minutes, but it felt like it was 2 hours, Steve.
Yeah.
And then he said, if you tell anybody what I've done to you, I'll not swear, man. He says, I'll let him kill you. That's what he said. I'll effing kill you. He told us to get my clothes back on. So I guess ready. By that time, I was just in a state of shock, crying.
Yeah.
And I went back to my dormitory. I didn't get a shower that night. I just laid on my bed crying. And the lad who was in the same dorm as me from Middlesbrough, he'd come back from the shower then. He asked him what was the matter, and I wouldn't tell him. My backside was bleeding, Steve.
I mean, you must have been traumatized. You'll have cried yourself to sleep. I mean, the following day, did you see this man again?
I saw him every day. Saw him every day, Steve, whether it was for 5 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever. You did see him every day, yes.
And was there any more communication? Did he speak to you? Did he say anything?
I was taken down the office again about 3 weeks later because I didn't get me green tie, see. I still had a blue one. The other officers recommended you to get a green tie, see.
Yeah.
And I didn't make that grade, so I got took down there and I lost a week's from my mission. I was only in the workshops another week after that, and I was took onto the garden party. It was called 5 Party, Steve.
Right.
And that was run by a bloke, an officer nicknamed Broken Nose. He was a tall fella, 6'6", I would say, and he had a big nose, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I understood. That's how he got the name of Broken Nose.
Yeah.
Every officer in there, they had nicknames.
When was the next abusive incident, Eric?
The next abusive incident after that, I got my head split open with a boot of this Broken Nose. We were in the boot room one afternoon. We'd been to the gym, you know. So when you go to the gym, you get your kit out of the boot room, you put your work clothes in the locker, then after you finish the gym, you go back in the boot room to start work again, back on the garden party, about 2 o'clock. Now, we may have been little, Steve. I wasn't very fast. So he said, hurry up and get ready. because I was the last one still in the boot room, and he got all of the black boot. You know them, like, tough work boots?
Yeah.
He threw it, and he hit the back of my head. And he split my head open, didn't he? There was blood coming down the back of my neck. So he took us into the recess and washed the back of my head. And he realised that my head had a big gash in it. It needed stitching. So anyway, there was a hospital wing in there. And he took me up to the hospital wing, and he says to the medical officer, he fell over and split his head open. The doctor says, well, I can't stitch that in there, you'll have to take him to Shotley Bridge Hospital. So I was taken to Shotley Bridge Hospital by him and another officer in a minibus, you know, like a prison minibus.
Yeah.
In one of them. And I had 6 stitches in the back of my head. I've still got the scar to this day, Steve. The medical officer took them out in there, man, but he couldn't stitch it, but he could take them out. With a pair of scissors, took the stitches out. And the same officer broke a nose on the garden party. He had a garden fork to my throat. Down the bottom end of the football pitch, there was 3 garden sheds, you know, where they grew plants and that soil and all that. He asked me to lift a big tray of soil. Well, it was too heavy, I couldn't lift it. I was only 6 stone. And he picked all the garden fork up and he got us against the shed wall and he put the garden fork to my throat. He bullied me another twice after that, the same officer, Steve.
Did you become immune to this, Eric? Because, you know, they say with abuse, you know, abusive relationships, for example, that, you know, you almost become attuned to it, you know, you become numb to it, or... It got very scary as time went on, Steve. It got very scary. Yeah.
I actually thought I was going to get killed in there, actually.
You said that on the second visit that your parents had with you, you had the lump on your head, obviously, from this...
I did. That happened in the recreation room. That was broken nose again, that.
So what happened with that particular incident?
What happened was, you got counted 4 times a day, morning, dinner time, tea time, and night time. He was counting everybody in the recreation room, right?
Yeah.
And we literally never saw us in the row of the crowd. So he got his knuckles, and he leaned forward and he hit us on the top of the skull. Have you heard of the henpeck?
No, can you explain that?
Yeah, it's a military punishment where someone gets the knuckles clenched together, put them like a beak, and they hit you on top of the skull, Steve.
Right.
And he did that to me and I blacked out. I just blacked out on the floor. I actually blacked out. And I had a lump on my head like a size of an egg.
So then you recover from that. You go on a visit to your parents. What did you say to your parents about this?
I told them not to come and visit us anymore. I told them what was going on. They'd been knocking us about.
So you actually explained what had happened, and what did they say?
Wait. On the way out after the visit, my dad had a word with an officer about what was going on, knocking me about. I mean, my dad was a big bloke. He was 6 foot turned. And the officer just ignored me dad. He ordered him out. He ordered him out the reception, back outside. That's what was going on, Steve. It was just... all the officers, they were all in it together. Everybody knew what was going on with the violence and everything.
You obviously experienced abuse yourself. Did you witness abuse to anybody else in Medomsley?
Yes, I witnessed quite a lot of abuse. People getting punched, kicked. I saw one lad get his nose burst open off an officer. One of the worst officers for violence was the gym teacher, Onslow.
And what did he do?
I had a scenario with him in the gym.
Can you tell us about that?
Yes. He asked us to pull up on the wooden beam, right? And I got all the wooden beam, I couldn't pull myself up. So I dropped off and everybody in the gym was laughing. And Onslow come over, I had a blue vest on and black shorts and sand shoes. He came over and he got me vest and he wrapped it around my neck and he dragged us down the gym. And as he was dragging us down the gym, he was punching my ribs in.
And did he do any serious damage to you, Eric?
Well, my ribs were bruised, but they weren't broken, man. But they were badly bruised, mind. I'm surprised they weren't broken because I was only 6 stone, you know, Steve. He knocked the wind out of us, like.
You were in there 3 months in total?
No, if you got 3 months, you did 8 weeks.
Right.
But I lost a week's remission for not getting a green tie, so I did 9 weeks.
So you're in there 9 weeks in total. What was it like when you were finally told that you could go home?
It was a relief, like you knew you were getting out. But your whole life just falls apart when you've been trapped like that, Steve.
Were you struggling? Were you struggling sleeping? Were you, explain the kind of effect it had on you, as you became a free person again.
It just, I was never the same lad. I've never been married, Steve. I've kicked children, nothing. It damaged me head completely. Damaged me head completely.
Have you ever had any therapy? Have you had any professional help?
Yes, I've had lots of counselling, Steve. Yes,
And has that helped, Eric?
Well, yes and no, Steve. I think what happens is you're not by yourself because there's other people that have gone through the same, or probably worse. It helps a little bit, Steve, yes, but it's never going to cure you. Once the damage is done, Steve, the damage is done.
The short, sharp shock treatment, which, came under Margaret Thatcher's reign as Prime Minister of Great Britain, that is often blamed for being used as a cover for the abuse by Medomsley officers. Would you agree that was how they got away with this?
I think I wouldn't like to say how they got away with it, Steve. I think if it had been now, they wouldn't get away with it, would they?
No.
I don't think we'd get away with it now, would they? Because people would turn now, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
I mean, all them years ago, you're only young lads, it was the regime. They got a buzz out of it, Steve. Out of knocking you about. There was 3 people died in there, Steve.
Did people die when you were in there yourself, Eric?
It was just there's nobody died in there when I was in, but I think there was 2 or 3 people come close, Steve. He had you in there playing football in the yard when it was -15 with no shirt on for 2 hours. And people were flaking out with hypothermia.
Obviously, there was some high-profile investigations about Medomsley. 2 police investigations actually led to 7 former officers who abused Medomsley detainees being jailed for nearly 34 years in total. I can remember Operation Halter. I think that saw the serial rapist Neville Husband jailed in 2003, and he was followed into prison by...
And Leslie Johnson, Steve.
Leslie Johnson in 2005. They were both for sexual abuse, weren't they?
Yeah, Leslie Johnson was a storeman in there. He was a storeman in Medomsley.
Mm-hmm.
He had a proper teddy boy cup with a quiff in his hand, long sideboards. Neville Husband was a big fella. Neville Husband used to be at the servery, morning, dinner time, tea time, just watching people. He must have been selecting young boys to work in the kitchen, say. As you were queuing up to get your food with your tray. He was there on the morning, dinner time and tea time, this Neville Husband. Mm-hmm. Just looking at people. Now, I had an idea what was going on in there myself. Because what happened to me, And I heard other lads talking in the showers about what had happened to them. Now, Neville Husband, he was a member of the amateur dramatics, you know.
Right.
And one night, there was 3 lads came in the recreation room late, and I said to one of them, "Where have you been?" He said, "Oh, we've been to a play." Well, I thought that was odd, you know. Getting taken out of there to go to a play at Shotley Bridge. But it was the lads who he was abusing, Steve.
Yeah.
He was taking them out of there to get abused as well, see.
Operation Seabrook in 2013 saw some more officers basically jailed for physically abusing detainees. Christopher Onslow, John McGee, Brian Johnson, Greenwell, Alan Bramley and Kevin Blakely.
Alan Bramley.
Yeah.
Kevin Blakely, that's broken nose.
And did any of those, I mean, obviously, you know, you were all of those people working there when you were at Medomsley?
Yes, they were. Only one officer I wasn't sure about. That was an officer called Neil Souby. He got nicknamed Hot Dog.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think Hot Dog was there when I was there. Now, the officer who knocked me out in the reception, Steve, the Scottish officer, he was nicknamed Mad Dog.
Yeah.
Now, this Mad Dog, he was about 5'10". He wore glasses, you know, big black glasses.
Mm-hmm.
He sexually abused me in my dormitory, you know, Steve. He sexually abused me in the dormitory one night.
So could you take us through that? What was the circumstances? What actually happened? And I mean, were the witnesses to this?
What happened was the lad who was in my dormitory, David Butler from Middlesbrough, he'd gone down to get a shower, right? And I was getting ready, so I had a towel wrapped round us, and this Mad Dog come upstairs in my dormitory, and behind him he shut the door, and he had us pinned against the wall by the throat, right? And he tried to masturbate us. This Mad Dog. That's what he tried to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he heard somebody coming upstairs, so he let me go, see. He let us go. He was always hanging around us. Every time he was on duty, he was always like hanging around us, you know.
Yeah.
So I put two together. Now, he must have been part of the paedophile ring, Steve.
What was there any repercussions for the governor who assaulted you?
Not after that, no. He never tried to touch me again after that, or sexually assault us anymore.
But I mean, you've subsequently made a complaint. When did you make your statement?
What it was, I told the police, I told the CID when I got out in 1978, and they just laughed at us. In the Crook police station, I told the CID. I told an officer called Derek Mapp. He was a nasty piece of work, this Derek Mapp. I think he may be dead now. If he's not, he'll be nearly 90. I told him, and he just laughed at us and told us to get on my bike.
So have you pursued it since then?
Oh, yes, I pursued it 13 years ago, Steve. 13 years ago I pursued it.
And what was the result from that, Eric?
Well, it took a long time to get the wheels in motion. And I told the police everything what had happened, and I went down to Meadowfield to the Meadows and I made a full statement. Now, I class myself as a lucky man with this Neville husband, because, you know, when I lost that week's remission,
yeah,
for not getting me tie, I got a week's scrubbing in the church, right, on a weekend, and I was scrubbing the church one Saturday morning, and the doors of the church opened. Because Neville husband, he was a church minister, you know, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
And he took the church service in Medomsley on a Sunday morning. And I was scrubbing the floor, and he walked in. He said, "When an officer walks past you, stand up." So I stood up. And he went down the bottom of where the holder stand is with the eagle on the church thing.
Yeah.
He was messing on with some paperwork behind there. So I got back to scrub on the floor, and when he stood up to walk out, he's been there maybe a quarter of an hour. I stood up when he walked, before he walked past us, and he says, "I'd love to FC UKU." But I didn't realise what he meant. I thought he meant brace up.
Yeah.
But now I know what exactly what he meant. So he could have raped me there, Steve, couldn't he?
Very easily.
But he didn't. But I clicked on. I thought he meant smash me up like FC UK.
Yeah.
So I classed myself as lucky that way. But if I'd been working in the kitchens, you would have raped me, Steve.
What actually happened to the governor who assaulted you?
Well, when I made my statement, right? When I made my statement about the governor, right? The police told me that he'd committed suicide down in Essex. Now, what happened was, you heard of Kevin Young, haven't you?
I have, yes.
Well, Kevin died, you know. Kevin was in the same year as me, but he was in the summertime and I was in the wintertime, see.
Yeah, and Kevin at 17, he'd been in care for a lot of his life. He was arrested for possessing a £12 stolen watch. That's him, isn't it? And Neville's husband began sexually abusing him. Yeah.
Now, Kevin worked in the kitchen, see, and he was taken out of there regularly by Neville's husband, right, into the officers' houses on the grounds, right. Now, this bit about the governor always wore a pair of brogues, you know. But apparently, these brogues were brown, Kevin Young was saying. So when he got took in the house, he was blindfolded. And he could see on the floor. And he saw a brown pair of brogues. So he put a plastic chair around his neck till he blacked out and he raped him on the bottom of the stairs. So the guy with the brown brogues had to be James Miller Reid, Steve. Because James Miller Reid and Neville's husband, they worked at Portland Borstal, you know, in the 60s. I think it's in Dorset, maybe, Portland Borstal. Or it was. They both got moved from there, right, for raping a boy in there. Both got moved to Medomsley. So they've covered the abuse up and moved them to another institution to let them carry on the abuse, Steve.
So, from your perspective, you didn't really get justice, did you, with this governor?
No, but you see, what it is, right? I was told off the police that this James Miller Reid had hung himself in a wood, right? Now, when Kevin Young had set the ball rolling, when husband and Leslie Johnson got jailed, the police said they'd gone to this Miller Reid's house and asked him about Medomsley, about sexual abuse and all sorts of what was going on. He said he would come up to the police station next day and make a statement. But he never turned up, did he? But why didn't they arrest him there and then, Steve? That's what you think they'd do, wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm. So instead he got to take the easy way out.
They reckon his body was found decomposed in the wood, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, they reckon they didn't know whether he'd hung himself. That's what the story I've heard now. I mean...
So you believe he could still be alive?
No, what I think's happened, I may be wrong, I may be right here. What I think's happened, Steve, I think he's been murdered to keep quiet.
Right.
That's what I think.
It's an allegation that, of course, that's, as you say, that's your opinion. But
one police officer, another police officer told me that he'd never hung himself. A police officer called PC Ian Waslin.
Mm-hmm.
He told me he never hung himself, Steve. Now, when I was in there, Steve, on the night, there was blokes coming in with suits on, and they were supposed to be border visitors, right? These people. Now, I think they've been all part of the paedophile ring. I do. Because there was one lad in there who was pretending to a house, Steve. He heard a woman's voice in the house.
And
he heard a woman's voice in the house. And he also heard a bird in a cage.
Right. And what's the significance of the bird in the cage?
Well, somebody must have known, right, that whoever owned that house, whether he was a prison officer or what, must have known he had a bird in the house, mustn't he?
Right.
Whether it was a cockatiel or a parrot or what.
Right.
He heard a bird chirping.
Yeah.
They were photographing him as well, Stevie.
Yeah.
He heard the camera clicking. They were photographing him and all.
Disgusting.
And Kevin Young was getting photographed. He was getting photographed and filmed and all with a projector.
How did you feel when Operation Seabrook took place and, you know, the trials took place and there was jail sentences handed out, even though one of your key abusers, escaped justice? How did you feel when you saw other people coming forward with stories and people getting jail for what they'd done?
Well, there was only Neville Husband and Leslie Johnson. They only got 3 years each for Medomsley. They got the rest for abusing the little boy and shot your bitch, Dave.
Yeah.
They pleaded guilty to raping 12 lads in Medomsley.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think what it was, I think a lot of people were too scared to come forward and all, Steve.
Because it's in the past and they'd left that behind.
That's right. That's what I think so. But these officers who got jailed, the ones who were charged with sexual got off with that. They only got jailed for the violence.
Mm-hmm. Did you ever get any financial compensation for what you'd experienced at Medomsley?
No, I've been denied compensation for the sexual abuse of the Ministry of Justice because the governor's dead. He wasn't convicted. It's been chucked out 3 times. The solicitors tried 3 times. Like, I know compensation doesn't put your head right, Stevie.
No.
But I think you want some compensation for what you've gone through in there.
Yeah, I think it's only right. Is there any more routes to appeal? Is there anything anybody can do?
What it is, the criminal injuries is the last resort. So my solicitors trying now for the criminal injury side of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not guaranteed neither. He said that was only maybe 30-70 on my side. So if there's nothing happens to there, I'll go without a penny.
And how does that make you feel?
Well, I'm angry about it if that happens today, but the thing is, money doesn't put your head right neither, Steve, does it?
No.
It doesn't, no. I'd rather see him go to jail, but obviously he's dead, isn't he?
Yeah.
But everybody who was abused by Neville Husbands got compensated because he was convicted, see? They had a conviction.
Do you feel that other people's cases, such as your own, have maybe been, forgotten now because in the public eye and in the eyes of the government, that they feel that because there was that conviction of Husband and because there was compensation level, those people, that maybe these other people like yourself don't really matter now, and it should just be best left to the history books.
I would like to see a full public inquiry, Steve.
Theresa May was asked about that, wasn't she, back in 2019?
Yes, my friend in Glasgow, John McCabe, sorry, he was raped every day in there by Neville Husband.
Mm-hmm.
He's fighting for a full public inquiry, Steve.
Is there anywhere that people can show some support for that? Is there a petition? Is there a website?
I'm not quite sure, but we all fight now for a public inquiry.
I know, of course, that kind of thing takes time, but
it can take a long time, Steve. Aye.
Have you recruited an MP's help with that?
John McCabe's the main man fighting for it.
Yeah.
But we all protesting for the full and public inquiry, like.
2020.
I got another letter off my solicitor down in Leeds about the public inquiry.
Yeah.
But they're still pushing for it, like.
Well, best of luck with that. 2023 now. I guess the memories are still just as raw, Eric. But you.
No, definitely never go away, Steve. Never ever.
But you've learned to live with it.
Well, you've got to live with it, Steve, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have got mental health problems. I admit I have, Steve, caused by that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think about it every day. It totally ruins your life, Steve.
Yeah.
Totally ruins your life. I mean, there's worse cases than mine, but mine's bad enough, like, you know what I mean? But there's worse cases as well.
Yeah. Eric, it's been, very hard listening to your story. I've got to be honest. I've read up on this. I've watched the news like many people in the northeast and probably everybody in the UK has heard of the Medomsley Detention Centre. What lessons do you think we've learnt as a society now from Medomsley?
Well, I wouldn't like to say really, Steve. I mean,
have we learnt any? Do you think?
Well, it's a tricky question that, Steve, because I think we have learned things, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a long time ago when that happened. They wouldn't get away with it now, would they?
No.
Because if you try to do that to prisoners now, there'd be eruptions on, wouldn't there?
Yeah.
You've got like all CCTV and all such as that now, haven't you?
Yeah.
There would be eruptions on, say, wouldn't it? There'd be riots and murders committed now if they were doing that, wouldn't there?
Yes.
But if the police had acted on this, Steve, when at the beginning they could have stopped it all. The police are to blame, the Ministry of Justice and the prison service. Them's the three main people to blame.
Mm.
Because they moved Miller Reid and Leslie Johnson. Not Leslie Johnson, Miller Reid and husband from Portland Borstal, Steve, to carry on the abuse.
I think what we're seeing now, Eric, is concerning as well, in the fact that the invent of the internet, which is something that can be so massively positive, is also such a massive negative now, because you talk about the abusers at Medomsley taking photographs, as part of this child sex ring when kids were being abused. Now we're seeing the internet being used to infiltrate kids in their own homes by paedophiles.
That's right, Steve, that's right.
So in many ways, I guess, as a society, we probably haven't learned anything other than there are a lot of very sick people out there.
That's right, Steve.
Mm-hmm.
See, I've tried to explain to a lot of people, about what happened in Medomsley, and some of them are like, they're not interested in listening.
Mm.
And I found out there's more people not interested in listening than what there is. That's people who has listened. You know what I mean?
I think it's very important that we all listen. And that's why I asked you that question about what have we learned, because I don't think we've learned anything as a human race. And you're a victim, and that's something which can never be taken away from you. You've shown mental strength because you're still here to tell your tale. You've shown massive mental strength by being able to come out and talk about it. And I know you've spoken about it to others as well. You've done interviews before. I wanted to get you on here, and I wanted to talk about this for many months, and we finally got round to it. And I just hope that people who listen to this realise that we haven't learned the lessons of Medomsley, and that if anything, things are a lot worse, because there's multi-billion-pound companies, social media companies, such as Twitter, such as Facebook, such as YouTube, such as you name it, that they're all in some way, shape or form letting themselves down by allowing individuals who are maybe known offenders have YouTube channels, or they're allowing the transfer of images or videos on public platforms which are clearly young underage children, which is part of abuse. So for me, you know, as a society, we haven't learned anything, Eric, and that for me is the most disappointing thing, you know. And you know, it's you know, we may not have the same kind of abuse from officials in prisons because of the fact that there's now CCTV and things are a lot stricter, and you know, it's virtually impossible to do like you could do in the 60s and 70s. But that abuse has now just been transferred to a different area, namely the internet, and you know, it still needs looking at, and somewhere in the world, as we're doing this interview, sadly there will be a child suffering.
They will, Steve, won't they?
Yeah.
It's terrible, isn't it?
It is, mate. It is. Eric, I'm going to stop the interview there now, mate. I just want to say a thank you for sharing your story with.
You're welcome, Steve. Steve, I would like to do a live interview about this, you know, to get it out so everybody will see it one day. I would.
Well, I'm going to put this out as it is, unedited, recorded. Is there anything else you want to say, Eric, before we finish the interview?
It's just that I could probably talk for another 2 hours about all the violence and everything that went on there. What happened to the people, Steve? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Maybe another time, you know. Yeah. It was horrendous, Steve.
Yeah. Eric, thanks very much for taking the time out today, mate. God bless you.
Anytime, Steve, you're welcome, mate.